Good morning and welcome to the agenda on this dial. Well, today we'll be tackling a topic that is at the forefront of international headlines, and that's the global migration and refugee crisis. I am Chike Obogo. We'll explore the political and social challenges, from border policies to integration struggles, and discuss humanitarian approaches that could make a difference. Joining me this morning to do justice to this is Dr. Idowu Johnson of the Department of Political Science, University of Ibadan. Good morning, Doc. It's good to have you on the agenda.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today.
Yes, well, migration has been a discourse for a while, and in Nigeria, we had the concept or the lexicon, the Japa syndrome. Well, we'll see how we can demystify that if it is possible. Of course, human beings are meant to move from one place to the other. There's this freedom of movement, but we'll also look at the demystification of leaving one's country to seek greener pastures in other countries. However, let's start with some context. As of 2025, the United Nations reports over 120 million people forcibly displaced worldwide due to conflict, persecution, climate change, and even economic instability. That's more than the population of Japan. Dr. Idowu Johnson, can you give us a quick overview of the current state of global migration and even refugee crisis at this time?
Yeah, in the first instance, migration crisis and refugee crisis is a very serious issue at the global level. And the international community, they also have a concern on how to manage the crisis. It is not a new issue or phenomenon. It has started even before the United Nations came to existence in 1945. And after the end of the Cold War, the global economic crisis, the global political crisis, and also the global cultural crisis have led to the upsurge of migration and refugee crisis. Today, nearly every continent of the world experience one migration or refugee crisis. And that's one of the reasons why the phenomenal growth of the number of those people that have been displaced, those people that are migrating from one place to another, and also those people that also have some kind of a problem in their country, who now become a refugee, have now grown astronomically. So we can say that one of the reasons why we have the growth of refugees and migration of people all over the world is because of the political and social economic crisis that every country of the world now faces. Even the poor countries of the world, developing countries that have been used to migrate from one to the other, are not the only people that are facing the crisis. We now have developed countries who are also having problems, as we have it in Ukraine.
Yes.
Also we have it in one of the European countries.
Yeah.
So all those problems are the ones that put everything together, that we now have the normal growth of refugee and migration of people from one place to another.
Well, that is so sobering to hear, because you just painted a sobering picture, as it were, especially when it comes to refugees who are fleeing based on persecution. We remember the time when we had issues in Afghanistan, where there were people, Afghans themselves became refugees, you know. And then look at the Russian-Ukraine crisis, which you mentioned earlier, and even Syria. Look at the Hezbollah and Israel crisis too, bringing up issues of refugees and migrants. However, politically, if you look at it, migration often becomes a flashpoint, if you look at it critically, especially in Europe, for instance, where we've been having populist movements, as it were. It's on the rise, and we have anti-immigration platforms. Now, how do political challenges manifest globally
Well,
right now?
at the political level, I think we have to first of all start our discussion from the fact that when we say there is a political dimension of a migration crisis, you must first of all look at that because they are having economic crisis, and that is where they are now breaking political reform. I will give you an example. When Nigeria was hosted Liberia and Sierra Leone at Oru, you know, the refugees,
Yeah.
you know, we are buoyant economically.
Yes.
But when we are now facing some economic crisis, you know, Nigeria is now withdrawing a little bit. So which means economic crisis in the country where that is harboring refugees or migrants will lead to a kind of political reform, which will now have adverse effect on those people that are migrants. Or on the other way, if somebody is in charge of a policy, or maybe a politician, they can also bring a policy that will not be variable to those people that are migrants. Let's take an example of the United States of America. You can see that when the Democrats are in charge of administration, they normally bring a policy that will be variable to the migrants. But when the Republicans are in charge, you know, the opposite reform, that will not a country that is will never bring a political reform that will have a positive effect on the migrant. But a policy that is social welfare in nature, they are more liberal in nature, definitely their own policy will be different from those ones that are very, very racist.
In this case now, where does the nexus come in between sovereignty and human rights?
When you're talking about sovereignty and human rights in international politics, the issue of sovereignty, you have to put it aside. And also, we're talking about globalization. The concept of globalization has affected the issue of sovereignty now. And when you're talking about sovereignty, those powerful countries will never believe in the sovereignty of a nation. Because in international politics, just as I've mentioned, the realist perspective is based on power. So those people that control the entire system will use their power. So when you now talk about sovereignty, globalization have allowed a sovereign state of power to be eroded. And that's the reason why it's only the poorer countries that will not have the say in the content of global politics. But when you're talking about international law, there is international law that also covers migration, refugees.
Yeah.
But you have to let us know that even at that level, the powerful countries also follow those laws at the detriment of the poorer countries. So in the context of global migration and refugee crisis, it is the powerful country that dictate the tone of events, because they are the one that even all the international organizations that are involved in those the agencies,
Yes.
it has been sponsored by these powerful countries, and they have to give them a kind of a dictate on what they're going to do as a policy measure.
Well, you talked about global laws, and if I will be, let me do this. Looking at the 1951 Refugee Convention, you see that many countries, many governments face extreme pressure, especially when it comes to upholding international obligations contained in that 1951 Refugee Convention. So basically, with that, are we saying that there is a far departure or an erosion of sovereignty as a people? Is there any country that is then sovereign, as it were?
Now, if you say we should go to pure academic discussion, most of our viewers will not get
But let's learn.
Yes, but the problem is that under international law, some people have argued that because of the fact that international law does not have somebody to enforce that law, they have argued that international law is not a law in itself. That convention you're talking about, I've said this already, that we have a lot of international legal framework, we have convention, but most of the powerful countries, they don't follow that convention, they don't follow the law. And the reason why they don't follow the convention and law is because for their own parochial interests. And they're gay.
Yeah.
So they were doing it, there is a law. Even terrorism have law, conflict have a law, but the question we're going to ask is that when you say you have a law that contains terrorism, that contains conflict, why is it that most of the powerful countries are still propagating armed conflict? So which means there is a legal framework, just like we have mentioned at the 1951 Convention. The convention, all of them had been put in place. But because of the struggle for the existence of many powerful states, that's the reason why most of the time they jettisoned that convention. They didn't follow the legal code. So there is an international dimension of the law, and that's also we call the politics of international law. And under the politics of international law, the powerful countries we follow. No, don't forget also that at times this powerful country may not even sign most of the convention, because if they sign, it will also deter them in not to follow the law. So in order, look at the climate change. It took some years before the United States of America and other countries have to sign that agreement. So what I'm saying in essence is that there's a legal framework that talk about migration issues, refugee issues. There's a convention, but because of the absence of those people to enforce international law, the powerful countries are also trying to not to follow the law. That's one of the crises we are facing.
So what about the rise of nationalism? We've talked about sovereignty, we've talked about human rights. Now, let's talk about nationalism, because when you look at countries like Poland, Hungary, you'll find out that some of these countries have started building walls, trying to go against the 1951 declaration. That's the migrant laws. Now, should countries follow suit by enforcing nationalism, by building what you call walls within their territory?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying is that when the convention came into existence, you can say that we don't have larger population all over the world. And you can say that even the post-Second War phenomenon, the economy of the world is still favorable to the entire global system. But from 1980s, when we now embrace this structural adjustment program, it has affected the economic prospects of many countries of the world. So these countries are talking about, Hungary, Poland, they are, let me just say, they are only advanced a little bit in terms of national development. Most of them are not better than some countries in Africa. I'm telling you, apart from the fact that good infrastructure, good governance in place. When we talk about the basic things of life, they can have it. But when you talk about prospect of citizens, Hungary is not a good. It's very difficult for you to see an average Nigerian to say, I'm going to Hungary, I'm going to Poland, except for maybe on educational wise. But if I want to relocate for good part of my life, we will see them in that kind of a country.
Maybe because of the language barrier.
No, not language. An African Nigerian can work anywhere, so rather that they are getting pay.
As long as the paper is coming.
Exactly. If there's if the monetary value is very, very important. That's the reason why many Nigerians relocated to Libya when the Gaddafi was there, because the dollar was very strong based on the international market economy. But what I'm saying is that Hungary, Poland, these are not countries that an average African will say, I'm very proud to go. So what I'm saying is that Poland, they are facing their own economic crisis. Hungary, they are also facing the economic crisis. And the European Union cannot accommodate those crises. And that's the reason why they're now bringing a kind of barrier that let us use our own resources to develop ourselves. It's only a country like Canada that are still looking for people to occupy their territory. It's only the United States as a country that can still accommodate. Even the United States is feeling the heat now because there's a global economic crisis. What I'm saying is that the barrier we are witnessing now from one of these countries, particularly from the east part of Europe, is because they too are facing their own economic crisis. If you go to Italy, Spain, all these things is a common phenomenon.
But you see, there can never be an utopian society. No society is perfect. However, you just made mention of Hungary, Poland, and the likes. Are you then saying that whatever they're doing to build a fortress for them, for their territorial integrity is not too good compared to what Canada is doing, opening up their borders for immigrants to come in and even get some good jobs to do?
Now, what I'm saying is that the legal code, one of the reasons why the convention came into existence is because they know that this kind of thing may likely to happen.
Occur,
So they want to make sure that we want to make sure that barriers are removed. Citizens have their rights, even though I'm a refugee and I'm a migrant, even though I'm a illegal immigrant. The principles of international humanitarian law is there that anybody have a problem. Let me give an example. When there was a crisis in Arab region, Germany, being a liberal society, allowed them to come on board. Even though we have most of them that are Islamic fundamentalists, they didn't look at the Islamic fundamentalism aspect of it. They are looking at those people that are coming from Arab countries to save their life. They allow them
humanity first.
Exactly.
Humanity first.
Humanity first.
Before religion.
Exactly. So the essence of that convention is that let us serve humanity. And if you look at the aspect of the international humanitarian law, is that woman's life is very, very important. So, but the convention is there. What I'm saying is that I've said it again before that the international law is there, but enforcement policy is also a problem. So, because nobody to enforce somebody that have floated the law, that's the reason why countries like Poland and Hungary can do anything they likes. So, and the same thing also applies to South Africa. Look at what happened in South Africa now. Even a black race, the way they have been treating Nigeria, the way they have been treating Zimbabweans. So all this is because they felt that we too we don't have what do you call it, good job in our country. So we are looking for avenue to allow people that are coming not to be coming again, so that they can also take care of their own environment.
We've talked about the political angle. Now let's shift to the social challenges at this time. You would agree with me that integration is key, right?
Very, very.
Okay, so if integration is key, then how do host societies grapple with welcoming newcomers?
Just like we have discussed earlier that the refugee crisis of 1990s and the early 2000s is not the same thing that we are experiencing now. The refugee crisis we are experiencing now, you cannot compare it as we experienced it 20 years ago. Now, the host countries cannot cope alone. That's why we have some civil society organizations that are also coming in so that they can also help those host countries so that they can also take care of the life of the refugees. I think there was a period that African Refugee Foundation was floated. I think Ambassador Shola was the person in charge. But I think that particular organization is not functioning. That organization was established so that African countries that are experiencing that kind of problem, as we have in Nigeria, Nigeria cannot sustain that Oru camp. And that's the reason why African Refugee Foundation have to come on board. What I'm saying is that the host communities, we have a lot of challenges now. They have to provide for essential services. They have to provide for accommodation. They must also give them some stipends in the normal ideal situation. But what I'm saying is that a country that is also having economic crisis, there will be a lot of pressure on the host countries. And that's the reason why most of the countries today are now guiding against people. Why is it that America is trying to have what do you call it, a wall around the Mexico side? Before they can allow them to just come in so that they can help them. But now the humanity is there. Those people that to provide the humanity are also solving for humanitarian crisis.
So is it that those who are being rendered humanitarian help are taking it for granted, as it were?
Exactly. That's why I'm saying that before, it is a general consensus all over the world that we have to serve humanity. But because somebody providing humanitarian assistance is also having a humanitarian crisis, how do you want that person to solve it? Let's take, for example, now, God will not allow it to happen, though. But if Nigeria is having another civil war today, the whole of West Africa is finished. Ghana will be ruined. Togo, Benin Republic. Do you know the reason why? Most Nigerians will rush to Ghana first. They are running for their life. By the time about 20 million enter Ghana or Togo, do you know what happened to their economy? Let's start from Benin.
The economy will choke.
They will finish. I said the whole West Africa is finished. How are they going to accommodate the whole of Nigeria? From border access and the Niger Republic, Chad. Chad is gone. The Niger Republic is gone. That's the reason why the Joint Task Force were collaborating so that they will not have effect on the Cameroon, Niger, Chad with this Boko Haram. Because they know that if Nigeria is finished in the conflict-driven crisis, then the entire region is also in a mess.
Some of these countries also have this fear. And the fear could be good fear or bad fear. But if you look at South Africa, for instance, and look at the xenophobic attacks, is this a xenophobic attack or is xenophobia as a result of migration into a territorial space and the fear of accommodating these people?
Very, very correct. Before we dwell on this point, I said that the classical example of South Africa is of the fact that there are two things there. First, Nigerians also misabuse the opportunity given to them in South Africa. Let us be very realistic. And average Nigerians are now into drugs. Some of them are into drugs. They're into even kidnapping, which they brought from here. They not take it there. And average Nigerians also. So there's a kind of a jealousy from those people that are South Africans. One, they were using money to entice their ladies. Two, the job that they've been doing before. Then three, because of the nature of Nigerian, we are very lousy, display wealth and opulence. They now feel that. But the problem now is that there is a law which is supposed to have guided this kind of atrocity. But I think the government also, they just pretended as if they don't see what is going on. But they see what is going on, but they also understand what is going on. But like I said earlier, the economy of South Africa cannot accommodate. Nigeria accommodated South Africa based on our large population entity, and we also have the economic...
And the land mass too.
Exactly. Anybody can just... But South Africa, you cannot compare. And they also have their own economic crisis. And that's the reason why nobody will support a xenophobic attack or issue, but it is inevitable, going by the current trends as we have it in the region.
Is it possible to apply the Paul Kagame model in Rwanda, where Rwandans are made to do the domestic jobs in Rwanda, trying to control their territorial space? And after the genocide, Rwanda seemed to have grown to a point whereby it's a country that is standing on its own. Even if you go to Rwanda, I remember many years back, you cannot work there if you don't understand the language. So they put up some barriers to make sure that there's no infiltration from the so-called outside influence, as it were.
Yes, it's possible. Rwanda is a very small country, number one.
Okay.
Number two, the leadership style of
Paul
Kagame is not to be compared with other leaders in Africa. Now, the experience of the war allowed them to sit down that you have to do something so that you cannot continue like this. I think Paul Kagame have that skill and the knowledge. And also, what we don't realize is that what Kagame is doing in this country is because if you want to develop, any country want to develop, you must inject some kind of authoritarian kind of leadership. Because if you don't inject kind of dictatorial leadership, you will not make any headway. And that's what we experience in Indonesia under Suharto, very dictatorial, authoritarian, but they have a kind of developmental approach. The same thing applies to Rwanda. But the problem with Rwanda is that there is no way it can continue like that. Once there's a change of leadership, it may not let to because I don't know whether it's policy, because people even are complaining that we don't want that kind of leadership, because we catch some people and it is not in the context of humanitarian ideas. Is
there going to be a crisis post-Kagame?
It will be likely to be crisis.
Wow.
Because it depends on the person who is going to take over. An average African country, they have what they call succession crisis. We don't know whether it's a building. What I can see is that we can see that his children are in the forefront. His children are in the forefront of political development. We have not even seen whether the deputy prime minister or the deputy vice president, we didn't see any kind of leadership post.
It seems to be nepotism.
Exactly. So we'll be likely to have to face that crisis.
Wow. Well, let's move on. I've read about parallel societies, and in some cities we have immigrants who live separately. Immigrants living separately from the original owners of the land. Is that an issue? Would that bring up crisis too?
Well, we have to address from two standpoints. The first point is that what kind of immigrant are you talking about? We have the irregular migration and regular migration.
So most times in these parallel societies, you find out that refugees usually stay off. They live away from the regular immigrants and the owners of the land.
There's nothing wrong about that.
Will that not bring up a crisis where they start having communities on their own?
No, it will not bring a crisis, but it depends on one condition.
Okay.
The condition is that if you are a refugee, they will not give you an opportunity. Maybe you can find, even when the Liberians were in Nigeria, Nigeria also gave them an opportunity that those of you that have access to education, do you want to go to school? They incorporated them to the larger society. So if you are an immigrant and you have been put in a camp, the policy allows you to come out, to elevate your status. But if you are just ordinary person, you are going to be there for life. So you cannot bring any kind of what we are going to say is that the country that's going to host them must also be liberal enough to say, if you know that you're a medical doctor, maybe because of a problem, maybe there was a persecution, there was a crisis, there was instability. If you're a medical doctor, come and file for a document so that you can integrate it to the society. If you're a lawyer, if you're an engineer, before you know it, they can also integrate them into the larger society. But the point is that it is normal that once you're a refugee, you have to first of all be in a camp. And don't forget also that being a refugee, maybe there's a crisis, is for some time. The host country that can decide to repatriate you back to your country. That's what they call voluntary repatriation. Maybe you have spent 5 years dead, and that's okay. We don't have the economic capacity
to take care of you anymore.
But if you know they want to, but it has to be not to force them. There will be a kind of, they will enlighten them, counsel them, they will tell them what to follow, but we call it voluntary repatriation, so that you are ready to go back to your country, not to follow. All these are documented in the content of international law.
Well, we'll go on a break now, and when we come back, we'll be talking humanitarian policies, as it were. Stick around, don't go away. It's still the agenda on this dial.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
All right, welcome back from that break. Still the agenda, and we are talking migration. Yes, we're talking migration, global migration, and even refugee crisis so far. We've talked about the political angle, we've talked about the social challenges, and now let's talk about the humanitarian policies. What works and what is failing? Dr. Idowu Johnson of the Department of Political Science is in the studio with me this morning. All right, Doctor, we've been breaking these things down, but let's talk about the humanitarian policies. What works for migration policies, and then what is failing so far?
Well, when you consider the issue of a humanitarian angle, the aspect of the refugee crisis, I think the first you have to, first of all, confront is the issue of food, food security. You know, before, an average refugee only believe the basic things of life, food, clothing, and shelter. But even the food is not forthcoming again. And the food that is not coming is not the host community, that is country that is